In the heart of our suburban community lies the Evergreen Meadows Homeowners Association, HOA, a governing body that plays a pivotal role in maintaining the neighborhood's aesthetic and property values. Established over a decade ago, the HOA was created with the intent to foster a sense of community and ensure that the standards of living remained high. With its neatly kept lawns, uniform house colors, and charming common areas, many residents initially embraced the HOA's vision. The responsibilities of the Evergreen Meadows HOA extend beyond mere landscaping. They are tasked with enforcing community rules, managing shared amenities, and overseeing finances to ensure proper maintenance. Monthly meetings are held to discuss ongoing projects and address any resident concerns. However, this well-structured facade belies an undercurrent of tension that has simmered over the years, as some members have grown disillusioned by what they perceive as overreach and a lack of transparency. For many homeowners, including myself, the HOA represented the promise of a harmonious living environment. We believed that their guidelines would protect our investments and maintain the charm that drew us to this community in the first place. Yet, beneath this veneer of orderliness lies an unsettling reality, an authoritarian grip that occasionally prioritizes power over people. It was during an intense dispute regarding property modifications that I became acutely aware of the HOA's more nefarious tendencies. What began as a simple request for approval spiraled into a series of draconian measures that ultimately led to my home being deemed uninhabitable. This unexpected fallout revealed not only the dangers of unchecked authority but also the emotional and financial turmoil it could inflict on unsuspecting residents. As I delve deeper into my story, it becomes clear how this seemingly benign organization transformed into a nightmare that would lead me to seek justice through legal means. When I first moved to Evergreen Meadows, I was filled with a sense of hope and excitement. The charming streets lined with manicured lawns and the smell of fresh blooms in springtime created an idyllic atmosphere that felt like the perfect place to settle down. As a newcomer, I attended the orientation meeting for new homeowners, where the HOA representatives spoke passionately about their commitment to preserving the beauty and integrity of our community. I remember thinking how fortunate I was to be part of such a proactive organization. In those early days, life in the neighborhood was enjoyable. Neighbors waved as we passed by, and annual block parties brought everyone together in celebration. The HOA's presence felt like a protective layer over our investments, promising that shared spaces would be well maintained and rules followed. For someone like me, who valued aesthetics and order, it all seemed ideal. However, as time passed, cracks began to appear in this seemingly utopian facade. The once open dialogue at meetings turned into bureaucratic red tape. Minor infractions were punished with fines that felt disproportionate to the offenses. Simple requests for changes to homes or yards were often met with long delays and rigid opposition. I found myself increasingly frustrated by the capricious enforcement of rules that previously seemed established for the common good. The tipping point came when an attempt to update my exterior siding, a change I believed would enhance my home, was unexpectedly rejected by the board without adequate explanation. It was then that I started questioning the very foundation upon which my expectations had been built. What had initially felt like a reliable safeguard morphed into a source of conflict and tension, setting the stage for battles I never anticipated facing as a homeowner. The incident that led to the destruction of my home began innocuously enough with my planned renovation project. After months of deliberation about updating the exterior siding to improve both aesthetics and energy efficiency, I submitted my request to the HOA, fully confident that it adhered to their guidelines. However, what followed was a long string of delays and vague communication. Weeks turned into months, and I found myself chasing after approvals that seemed increasingly elusive. Each follow-up was met with promises of review but little action. Then, without warning, I received a letter from the HOA indicating that they opposed my proposed changes due to a supposed violation of community standards that had never been clearly delineated in any of our meetings or documents. The decision felt arbitrary and capricious. As I sought clarification, the situation escalated drastically. The HOA board issued a series of notices claiming I had failed to comply with community rules, which culminated in a demand for immediate remediation of my home's exterior. They threatened hefty fines if I did not revert back to the original state within a matter of days. Feeling cornered and bewildered by their sudden aggression, I consulted local regulations regarding my rights as a homeowner. It became clear that the HOA's actions were not only overreaching but also lacking legal basis. In an attempt to comply while awaiting further discussions, I took down my newly installed siding only to discover underlying structural damage that had gone unnoticed for years, damage exacerbated by lengthy exposure to the elements without proper protective covering. The HOA's unreasonable demands left me scrambling to find temporary housing as my home deteriorated into an uninhabitable state. This chaotic chain of events marked a turning point in our relationship and ultimately triggered my decision to seek justice through legal means. The destruction of my home took a profound toll on both my emotional well-being and financial stability. Once a bright spot in my life, my house became the source of constant stress and anxiety. Losing my home not only shattered my dreams of a comfortable and beautiful living space but also left me feeling vulnerable and displaced. The very walls that were meant to protect me now stood as a reminder of my battle with the HOA, where I felt trapped between compliance and self-preservation. Financially, the impact was devastating. As I rushed to find temporary housing, I faced escalating costs that I had never anticipated. Rentals in the area were pricey, and relocating meant securing additional funds I hadn't budgeted for. This unplanned expenditure strained my savings and left me questioning how long I could sustain this situation while grappling with mounting legal fees from pursuing action against the HOA. The emotional weight was equally heavy, feelings of betrayal became difficult to shake off. I had once viewed the Evergreen Meadows community through rose-tinted glasses, neighbors became friends, and our shared spaces felt like extensions of our homes. Now, I experienced isolation in a place that had once promised camaraderie, yet the looming conflict overshadowed any sense of belonging. Additionally, the loss of property value weighed heavily on my mind. What had once been a promising investment now felt like a sunk cost that had deteriorated due to circumstances beyond my control. Each day spent outside of my home compounded the frustration and helplessness I felt as more time passed without resolution. This journey transformed what should have been a proud moment in homeownership into an ongoing struggle for stability. Ultimately, it was clear that seeking justice wouldn't just be about reclaiming my property but also restoring a sense of safety and normalcy in my life. In the wake of my home's destruction, I made several attempts to address my grievances with the Evergreen Meadows HOA, hoping for a resolution that could restore some semblance of normalcy to my life. My first step was to reach out directly through email, outlining my concerns regarding their actions and how they had adversely affected my living situation. I detailed the timeline of events, emphasizing the lack of clear communication and the severe consequences of their decisions. Unfortunately, my emails often received generic responses that felt dismissive, causing my frustration to deepen. Determined to seek a more personal resolution, I scheduled a meeting with the HOA board, believing that face-to-face dialogue might foster understanding. The atmosphere was tense, board members were visibly defensive. Although I presented my case passionately, I felt as though I was met with indifference rather than empathy. They insisted that their decisions were based on established regulations, but they could not provide adequate justification for why my renovation had been deemed unacceptable. It became increasingly clear that their adherence to rules overshadowed any concern for the human impact of their decisions. Following this disappointing encounter, I sought mediation, hoping a neutral third party could help bridge our differences. This process involved gathering documentation and presenting it to the mediator, which made me feel hopeful for a resolution. However, even in mediation sessions, the HOA maintained a rigid stance, unwilling to acknowledge their role in my situation. Despite these efforts, I realized that genuine accountability from the HOA was unlikely without further escalation. Each attempt at resolution only reinforced my determination to pursue legal action. It became evident that my quest for justice would not simply be about reclaiming my property but also about holding them responsible for the turmoil they had caused in my life. As I grappled with the fallout from my ensuing conflict with the HOA, it became increasingly clear that traditional avenues for resolution were failing to provide relief. Each attempt to communicate my concerns only deepened my frustrations, and it dawned on me that more drastic measures would be required to hold the HOA accountable. After extensive reflection, I arrived at the conclusion that pursuing legal action was not just necessary but inevitable. The decision did not come lightly. Uncertainty loomed over me, especially as I weighed the potential costs of a lawsuit against the backdrop of my already precarious financial situation. Ultimately, it was legal counsel that provided clarity and confidence as I navigated this uncharted territory. A lawyer experienced in real estate disputes helped outline my rights and options while illuminating the strengths of my case. We discussed how the HOA had failed to follow its own guidelines, and more importantly, how their decisions had not just been arbitrary but damaging to my life. Support from my neighbors also played a crucial role in fortifying my decision. Some residents had witnessed firsthand the treatment I endured and expressed solidarity by sharing similar stories of frustrations they battled with the HOA. Hearing their experiences left me feeling less isolated. It reassured me that I was not just some outlier challenging an institution, but part of a larger narrative shaping our community's landscape. Buoyed by this combination of legal advice and grassroots support, I filed my lawsuit with renewed determination. The initiative felt significant, not merely for myself but also for others muted by fear of retribution from the HOA. Now, seeking justice wasn't just about recovering losses, it symbolized a stand against injustice in our community and restoration of rights for all homeowners facing similar challenges. Understanding the legal framework surrounding homeowners associations, HOAs, is crucial for navigating disputes like mine. HOAs typically operate under state laws and their governing documents, including bylaws and covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC and RS. These documents outline the rights and responsibilities of both the association and its members, serving as a contract between homeowners and the HOA. In many states, homeowners have specific rights that protect them against arbitrary actions by an HOA. For instance, state statutes often require HOAs to provide clear notice of rule violations and a reasonable opportunity for homeowners to rectify any issues. Additionally, these laws may mandate that associations maintain transparency regarding financial matters, such as how dues are utilized and any expenditures being made. When disputes arise, homeowners can pursue several avenues for legal recourse. First, mediation is often recommended as a means to resolve conflicts amicably without escalating to litigation. However, if mediation fails or if the HOA continues to act outside its authority, homeowners can file a complaint with their state's real estate commission or other regulatory bodies. If those steps do not yield satisfactory results, litigation becomes a viable option. Homeowners can sue the HOA for breach of contract or tortious conduct if they believe their rights have been violated. In many cases, plaintiffs seek damages for financial losses incurred due to the HOA's actions, as well as enforcement of their rights under the association's governing documents. It is essential to note that legal battles can be lengthy and costly. Homeowners must weigh the potential benefits against the risks involved in pursuing court action. However, awareness of one's rights within this legal framework empowers individuals to stand up against unjust practices and seek meaningful resolutions in their communities. As I embarked on my own lawsuit against the Evergreen Meadows HOA, understanding these regulations equipped me with the knowledge necessary to advocate fiercely for my case. As I prepared to take legal action against the Evergreen Meadows HOA, understanding the lawsuit process became crucial. The first step involved consulting with my attorney to outline the specifics of my case, including the damages I experienced and the legal grounds for my claims. This preparatory phase was essential in identifying the evidence needed to support my arguments, which included correspondence with the HOA, photographs of my home's condition, and documentation of financial losses. Once we gathered sufficient materials, drafting the complaint was next. This document formally outlines my grievances against the HOA and specifies what remedies I sought, namely, damages for emotional distress and costs associated with finding temporary housing. After finalizing the complaint, we filed it with the appropriate court, after which I received a summons that notified the HOA of the lawsuit. Following this initial filing, the discovery phase began. This part of the process involves both parties exchanging relevant information and evidence. My attorney and I compiled depositions from witnesses who supported my case, including neighbors who experienced similar issues. We also requested documents from the HOA to clarify their procedures and decisions that led to my home's destruction. As preparations continued, we faced deadlines for submitting various motions and responses. During this time, I began to mentally brace for potential mediation sessions that might occur before reaching trial. Knowing that many cases settle out of court made these discussions crucial, however, I remained committed to following through if it meant achieving justice. Eventually, a trial date was set. As daunting as it initially seemed, each step along this path transformed my sense of empowerment into a determination to seek accountability not just for myself but also for others affected by similar challenges within our community. The entire process underscored not only my fight for justice but also a desire to reclaim a sense of safety within my own home and neighborhood. As news of my lawsuit against the Evergreen Meadows HOA spread through our community, reactions were anything but uniform. Some neighbors expressed strong support, seeing my fight as a necessary stand against what they viewed as the HOA's overreach. They shared similar grievances, recounting experiences where the board had imposed arbitrary fines or blocked home improvements that seemed reasonable. This camaraderie strengthened my resolve, reinforcing the idea that I was not alone in feeling a sense of injustice. On the other hand, there were residents who were more hesitant or outright opposed to my legal actions. They argued that such a public dispute could further fracture our community, turning neighbors against each other. Some voiced concerns about the financial implications of a drawn-out lawsuit, fearing that it would ultimately reflect poorly on property values and the overall harmony within Evergreen Meadows. A few even suggested that I should have worked harder to find a compromise rather than resorting to the courts. In conversations at local gatherings, opinions varied wildly. During one particularly tense neighborhood meeting, tensions rose as differing views clashed. Supporters of my case rallied behind me, while others cautioned against antagonizing the HOA, emphasizing the importance of maintaining positive relationships for the sake of our shared community. I found myself in the midst of this passionate exchange, feeling both empowered by my supporters and disheartened by the division. Despite the contrasting perspectives, this discourse reminded me of the vital role of communication in community dynamics. Many residents were grappling with their own frustrations regarding the HOA but lacked a clear outlet for those feelings. My situation sparked conversations that had long been avoided, awakening a desire among some homeowners to challenge unjust practices collectively. Ultimately, I realized that my lawsuit was not solely about individual justice, it was also igniting a broader dialogue on accountability and governance within our community. As I envisioned the potential outcomes of my lawsuit against the Evergreen Meadows HOA, a blend of hope and uncertainty filled my mind. Victory could manifest in various forms, from financial compensation to meaningful policy changes within the HOA. Financially, a favorable ruling could provide restitution for the losses I incurred, costs for temporary housing, legal fees, and the diminished value of my home. This compensation would alleviate some of the burdens I had endured over the past months and help me rebuild a sense of stability. However, beyond monetary relief, I yearned for broader reform within the HOA itself. A victory could serve as a catalyst for change, prompting the board to reassess its practices and governance. If my case exposed the shortcomings in transparency and fairness, it might encourage other homeowners to speak out and demand accountability. Change could mean clearer communication regarding community guidelines or more equitable processes for handling disputes. The prospect of policy shifts was particularly appealing, as it could pave the way for a healthier neighborhood dynamic going forward. Additionally, winning this lawsuit would symbolize a triumph against an organization that had wielded its power without regard for individual homeowners. It would be more than just a personal victory, it would stand as a testament to the importance of advocating for oneself and standing up against injustices. This outcome could inspire others in the community to pursue their rights, instilling confidence that collective action could lead to meaningful change. Ultimately, my goal extended beyond mere compensation. I wanted to reclaim my sense of safety and belonging within Evergreen Meadows. Achieving justice in this context would not only validate my own struggles but also contribute to fostering a more supportive, accountable community where residents could thrive together rather than feel oppressed by their governing body. The stakes felt incredibly high, but the potential rewards were equally significant. The implications of my lawsuit against the Evergreen Meadows HOA extend far beyond my personal situation. They hold the potential to impact countless homeowners facing similar challenges. As I navigated the complexities of my case, it became evident that many residents in our community, like those elsewhere, often feel powerless against the authority of their HOAs, which can operate with little oversight and accountability. If my case succeeds, it could serve as a precedent, encouraging others to challenge unjust practices and prompting a collective demand for reform. One significant outcome could be an increased awareness of homeowners' rights within association governance. As stories like mine gain visibility, more residents may become informed about their legal protections, empowering them to speak up against administrative overreach. This newfound knowledge could foster a culture where homeowners actively participate in HOA meetings and advocate for fair treatment, thereby enhancing community engagement and collaboration. Moreover, should the court ruling favor me, it might compel the Evergreen Meadows HOA, and others like it, to re-evaluate their policies and practices. Reform could manifest as clearer communication regarding guidelines and decision-making processes, or even more stringent checks on board members' powers to prevent abuse. Such changes could help ensure that future disputes are handled with greater transparency and fairness. Additionally, the attention drawn to this case may spur local governments or regulatory bodies to consider implementing stricter regulations governing HOAs. Increased oversight could mitigate potential conflicts and protect homeowners from future injustices. Ultimately, while my journey is deeply personal, it symbolizes a broader struggle for rights and accountability within homeowner associations. Achieving victory in this legal battle could inspire a movement toward change, one that empowers individuals and strengthens communities by demanding better governance from those entrusted with maintaining our neighborhoods. The potential for reform opens doors not just for myself but for all homeowners seeking justice in the face of adversity. Reflecting on my journey thus far, I find it remarkable how one dispute with the Evergreen Meadows HOA has transformed into a powerful narrative about justice and accountability. What began as a personal struggle to save my home has unveiled larger issues within our community, shedding light on the challenges many homeowners face when dealing with authoritative governance. The road has been fraught with emotional turmoil and frustration, yet it has also been empowering, awakening in me a determination to advocate not only for myself but for others who feel marginalized or unheard. As I prepare for the next steps in my legal battle, my hopes are anchored in the possibility of change. Winning this lawsuit would signify much more than a financial victory. It would represent a significant shift in the dynamics of power between homeowners and their associations. I envision a future where residents feel equipped to challenge oppressive practices and demand transparency from their HOAs. This case has the potential to encourage others to speak out about their grievances, creating a ripple effect that could lead to broader reforms. Moreover, I hope my experience will inspire local regulatory bodies to reconsider guidelines governing HOAs, promoting stricter oversight and accountability. Such reforms could foster an environment where community members can engage more openly with their associations, ensuring that decisions are made collaboratively rather than unilaterally. Ultimately, my quest for justice is fueled by a desire to reclaim not only my home but also the sense of safety and belonging that every resident deserves. As I look toward the future, I am filled with hope that through this fight, we can pave the way for a more equitable community, one where homeowners are empowered to ensure that their voices matter, and where cooperation triumphs over conflict. The stakes are high, but so are the potential rewards for all of us looking to reclaim our neighborhoods and restore harmony within them.